All right, so first up we have salt, gonna bring out the flavor of all in the ingredients, right? We've also got baking powder as our leavening agent. It is going to make our product rise. Next we've got sugar, provides sweetness, helps with that brown outer crust. We've got powdered sugar, which is also going to provide some sweetness, and it's used to make our glaze. We've got our brown sugar, also provides sweetness and helps to brown the crust, just like sugar. I've got mixing bowls up here. We've got flour that provides our structure. Vanilla and cinnamon both add some extra flavor. On my cutting board over here, I have my butter knife. I've got my straight edge spatula. I've got my butter. Remember, butter helps to provide tenderness to your baked product and also extend the shelf life. I've got my egg in this little custard cup right here. Egg is going to help bind the ingredients. It's also going to provide extra nutrients and help everything blend together nicely. We've also got our milk, which is our liquid, going to help everything bind together nicely again. We've got our liquid measuring cup. I've got my pastry brush that I'll be using to cut in to make my streusel. I've got my dry measuring cups, and then I am going to be using this pan. This is a springform pan that I'm going to be using today. All right, so the first thing that I'm doing for this recipe is making my streusel mix. My streusel mix consists of a half a cup of brown sugar. So I already packed that in, obviously, because it all stays together. I'm also going to add to that 2 tablespoons of flour. Got my tablespoon, my flour bin over here. 1 tablespoon. 2 tablespoons of flour. I need 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, which I have right here. One teaspoon. I'm just going to shake it to level it off. Use my straight edge spatula to get exactly 1 teaspoon. Put that in there. And then lastly, I have my 2 tablespoons of butter, which I've already cut off the stick, the 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to cut the butter in to the dry ingredients. Here's my butter. Here's, remember, my pastry blender is what I use to cut in. I'm just gonna break apart real quick the brown sugar and get everything mixed before I add the butter. If you don't have a pastry blender at home, you can also use 2 knives to press it down, or like 2 butter knives, or you could also use the back of a fork if you don't have a pastry blender. So before I add my butter, I'm just gonna cut it into smaller chunks so that it's easier to break it down. So there's my butter and my dry mixture. I'm gonna cut it in with the pastry blender. And remember, I want it to resemble like small little pea pieces. Getting closer. So this is a streusel mix. This is a layered coffee cake. This mixture will be going in between my batter and then on top as well. So it's a good sweet mixture when you're making this coffee cake. Pieces are starting to look a little better. Because my butter was at room temperature, it's starting to stick to the pastry blender, and that's fine. You just want to clear it out. give it one more mix. That looks pretty good. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is make the coffee cake batter. First thing I'm going to do is add my liquid ingredients, which is going to be my egg, as well as my sugar. Crack my egg into my custard cup. We're all good there, and I'm gonna beat this up actually in my KitchenAid mixer. So I've got my stand mixer right here, and I've got my whisk attachment on my stand mixer. My egg is broken in there. My directions tell me to beat it up until it is frothy. So let's do that. All right, so frothy means that something is a little bit more full and that it's got bubbles in it. So check the egg out. It's definitely a lot more full now, a little bit more dense, and it's got lots of bubbles. So next we're going to slowly add the sugar. I've got 3/4 a cup sugar right here. We're going to slowly add the sugar while we are mixing it. Remember, in this case, sugar is considered to be a liquid ingredient. Butter and the sugar are well incorporated into each other, so now we are going to be adding the rest of our liquid ingredients, which is our butter. My butter has been setting out in room temperature. I have a 1/3 cup of butter right here. Add that in. And we are also adding our vanilla and our milk. I've already gone ahead and combined those two. We're gonna add it little by little though, so just put a little in right there. We can still use the whisk because the butter is at room temperature. So I'm going to mix this up, and then I'm going to slowly add the rest of the milk vanilla mixture. Remember, this is a creaming method. So I've already mixed up my dry ingredients, which are right here. I have a 1.5 cups of flour in here. I have 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder and also a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So next step is to slowly incorporate all of my dry ingredients into my liquid ingredients that are already in that KitchenAid mixer. So as you guys can see, I did switch out my whisk attachment for my paddle attachment. When you have dry ingredients, you are using your paddle attachment so they don't get all stuck in the whisk. I'm going to add a little bit of my dry ingredients to start. All right, so now we're gonna put it all together. Our batter looks good. This would be considered a drop batter, not a pour batter, because the consistency is a little bit thicker than a pour batter would. Remember, that's like your pancakes, your waffles, things that have a higher ratio of liquid. And then your dough would be something that you could pick up and form by hand. But for this, you can't. We'll just be pouring it into our springform pan. If you don't have a springform pan, that's okay. You could just use a regular 8-inch round pan or an 8-inch square pan. Really, anything works. The recipe calls for it to be greased, so I am spraying the bottom and the sides with nonstick. We are going to add half of our batter into the bottom. So you just eyeball it out until you think you have half. Make sure it covers the bottom. Getting there. Got to make sure that all the edges are covered. Try to get it as even as possible. That looks pretty good. Then we've got our streusel mixture. Didn't forget about that. And I am just going to use my hands to sprinkle half of it again as the middle mixture. Then we repeat with the remainder of the batter and the streusel for the top. Have it as even as possible. Then the rest of the streusel mixture is going to go over the top. And the oven is preheated to 400 degrees. It will bake in the oven for how long? 20 minutes. There we go, it's ready to bake. There is a glaze that goes over the top of the coffee cake when it is done baking. So in this bowl right here, I have a half cup of powdered sugar that I've already measured out. I'm also going to add some vanilla extract. It is 1/8 of a teaspoon that I'm adding, which is a very small amount. I am using a 1/4 of a teaspoon to measure, and I'll just eyeball it so that I have half of this filled up. Back in. There we go. So just a little bit of vanilla. And then I actually measured out 1 tablespoon of milk into this custard cup right here. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of milk, but I'm just going to slowly add some of the milk in. I might not use it all, but basically you're adding the milk and stirring it until you reach the desired consistency that you'd like the glaze. And this might be hard to see because of the coloring. To see, but as you start to mix it up, you can see everything kind of coming together and where it's not coming together. So I'll just mix this up. There we go. And to me, this is very sticky. I'd like it to be a little bit more liquidy, so I am going to add more milk. That's a much better consistency. And we'll drizzle that on the top of the coffee cake when it's done baking. which is in 8 seconds actually. My alarm will go off, so let's check it out. Straight out of the oven, there's our coffee cake. Looks pretty good to me. Just like a muffin, you could check for doneness by using a toothpick and sticking it in the middle of the coffee cake. I actually don't think I have any toothpicks, so I'm just going to use a butter knife. That works too. Oh, it's got a nice crispy topping. So if it comes out clean like this one did, it's not wet, it's not liquidy, that means that your coffee cake is done cooking, which mine is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drizzle the glaze on top. All right, it's been a few minutes. The pan is mostly cooled down. You just open the side. So, and we've got our coffee cake. Boom. Inside. Here's a slice. All right. So as always, guys, this recipe, the streusel layered coffee cake, will be on Canvas. If you'd like to make it, send your pictures to your teacher. We'd appreciate seeing what you guys made. And as you can see, there's nice little layers in here. Smells delicious. It's good stuff.